The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the second webinar in our HPM Lunch and Learn series. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. As always, we really hope that you find these sessions beneficial and that you can take some practical information from them. For anyone who missed out on last week's session, it's now up on YouTube, so you can watch it at your leisure. You simply search HPM Lunch and Learn webinars, and it should be the first result that you see. We'll also be adding this webinar up by the end of today. It just takes a little bit of time to process them and get them ready to put up there, but they will be up there. So again, if you want to look back on anything, YouTube is the place to go, and literally just search for Helix Practice Manager Lunch and Learn webinars, and you'll get them. Again, just quick introductions. The same team that you had last week. So I'm Donald Nilon. I'm Marketing Manager for Clonwilliam Health. I'll be emceeing today, and I have Ronan Leonard, our Practice Ireland Sport Team Leader, with me, and he's going to go through today's session. Today, Ronan's going to look at HL7 mapping or lab mapping in HPM. And again, as per last week, we'll hold questions to the end, but we will do our best to get through as many questions as we can. If you have a question, simply click on the question tab on the GoToWebinar control panel that you should be seeing on your screens now. Type in your question, that'll come directly to us. We'll see it and we'll try to answer them at the end of the session. So without any further ado, I'm just going to pass the controls over to Ronan. And Ronan, you should be getting that now.
Okay, perfect. Hi guys. Okay, so we're going to go through HL7 mapping today. So the first thing I just want to show, just before we actually go in and sort of mimic downloading some bloods, I just want to run through machine configuration very quickly. So if you go into administration, other settings, and machine configuration, and into your health link tab here. Now, you'll see credentials here. Now, these are just test credentials here that we would use here in the office, but you'll have all your live credentials here. So the first thing is to make sure that you actually have these credentials on the machine and that HealthLink have installed the certificate for you. Okay, so now that we've done that, we will just go into administration and HL7 tests. Now, normally what you would click here, you would just click import straight away. You'll get a little sort of progress bar or egg timer for a few seconds, and then you'll get a pop-up. Okay, and I have some downloaded already. So I'm just going to open the details here just to mimic what you would normally see. So what we've got here is we've got 5 or 6 test results. These are actually test patients that we got from HealthLink. And what we'll do is we'll match them individually. Now, as you go on matching, you'll have to do less and less mapping. But at the start, you do have to do quite a bit just to get everything together. All right, so if we take this second one here, if you look at any one of these, you'll see that the status here, it has actually 2 icons beside it. There's a person icon and there's a graph icon. This indicates that in the case of this lab that has come back, neither the patient or the lab is actually matched in HPM. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is just click on match. It will automatically search by the date of birth of the patient, and if it doesn't find the date of birth, it'll obviously find nothing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to match to a test patient. I'm going to match to this patient here. So once we double click on that, you'll see that it will then open up the exam section that needs to be matched. So I suppose the best way to think of an exam is that the actual exam name itself is up here, and the tests that have come back from the lab are here on the left. So the best way to think of an exam is a folder, and the tests are files within that folder. Okay, so as you can see, everything on the left is what's come back from the lab, and anything on the right, if anything has been matched previously, it will appear on the right. So nothing is matched here at the moment. So the very first thing we do is we have 2 choices. We can either search for an exam that we know that this is. So I wouldn't be clinically minded, so maybe a doctor there would know that this could be called something slightly different within their system. So they might want to match liver function to a particular exam. So they would perform a search for this exam and then hit match selected. But in this case, I'm just going to hit add new exam. Okay, so once I've done that, you'll see that it's matched now. It's created this exam in the system and matched it. If I click on this test here, you'll see that HPM will offer you suggestions. But if you don't want to match, you can still click on Add New Test, or you can match select it. So in the case of this one, I'm going to click Match Selected. If I click on this one, as you can see, it's offering suggestions again. There is no ALT test in my system, but it's bringing back every test beginning with A, just as a suggestion. So again, in this case, we would not hit Match Selected. We would click Add New Test. And we'll do the third one as well. And this is called alkaline phosphatase. So I'm guessing that it could be any one of these. I'm guessing that it's this one. But again, you would always have a choice whether you want to match select it or add a new test depending on your preference. But be aware that this will be matched from now on. It will come back automatically. You won't have to do this again. So you might want to change it afterwards. So in this case, I'm going to click Match Selected. Now, once everything on the left has a corresponding entry on the right, we're completely done. So if I click OK on that, you'll see that that record is gone from this list. Okay, so once we've done that with that one, I'm going to go into this patient's chart, and you'll see that it's now appearing in the chart. Inside the chart, you have your various options. You have your hospital view here that you can actually view, and you have your test view as well. Okay, so that's kind of matching, but just to show you as well, once labs are matched, what you can actually do is go in and manage them centrally. You don't actually have to go into one patient's chart to do this. If you go into tasks and exam management, you will actually see a list of exams and tests here that you can actually manage rather than actually going into the patient's chart. And here you can actually put in, you can filter on separate dates. You can show all or show abnormal. You can do quite a few things in here. Okay, so now we'll close back this. Go back into HL and test. I just want to make sure I've covered everything there. Yeah, that's pretty much everything there, Donald. Is there any questions coming in or?
No, but a couple that I have myself. If you're looking at results on the patient's chart and some of the test names aren't correct and
Yeah.
not the same as what's in the hospital view, what's happened there?
Yeah, so what's happened is basically if I go into HL7 tests, and what we'll do is we'll match another one. We'll pick this one. And this is just another exam here. So if I click, actually we'll do the second one here. So if I click on match here, and we'll search for test running again. Now, so if I click on this and I click add new exam, if I click on this and click match selected, because that's correct. Now, this is a prime example of what can happen. There is no test in my system, and there may not be a test in a customer system called calcium corrected for albumin. This has come back from the lab. It's a very specific test name. Now, HPM will find tests, all tests beginning with C as suggestions, but obviously, as you can see, Donald, it's not here. Now, what can happen is users can get so used to it finding the right one that they would be used to clicking match selected. So if I click this and hit match selected there in error, then you'd obviously have the test name appearing incorrectly in the patient's chart. Okay. So if I click match selected here, you'll see that it's actually matched incorrectly now. Now, obviously, if somebody is using this and they're going through an exam fairly quickly, they could miss it and they could click this rather than clicking on add new test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just finish this out and add new test here. So I'll go back into the patient's chart again. Might have to refresh this now. Just go back in again. And as you can see, that's actually, the values are correct. If I click on the actual hospital view, you can see that everything will look right there, but the display in HPM will have this written. Okay. Now, the way to fix that is what you have to do is, now you can give the desk a call. We can certainly help you out with that. What we can do is we can remove the mapping completely so that when the lab comes back next, it will have to be matched again, but correctly. So if I go into administration, other settings, and exam configuration, and if I just type in CA, and there's the exam that's been created. If I click edit on this, go into HL7 mapping, and you'll see that this has mapping. So what this means, Donald, is that this is going to come back automatically now. It's never going to ask me to map this again because it knows.
Okay.
And obviously it's been mapped in correctly now, so we wanted to ask again.
Okay.
So we just highlight this and click remove and click OK. So the very next time this exam comes in, it will be completely unmapped.
Okay.
And will have to be mapped again, but to the correct test this time.
Sure. Okay, great.
Okay.
And then a question from Annette. What do you do if the results go into the wrong patient file, or they're just kind of incorrect? How can you fix that?
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so that can happen. Obviously, you could have patients with the same forename, surname, and very similar dates of birth. And when you're matching the very first time, you might not spot that there's more than one patient, and you can actually assign the lab to the wrong patient's file. That's easily fixed. So if I go into tasks and exam management here, you'll see that all of these are for review. Okay. And most of these labs are assigned to me. Now, if I go back into patient's chart here, see that they're set to for review. Okay, so what happens most time, Donald, is that doctors will go in and review these labs, and then they will change the status of these to complete because they've been completed in most cases. Now, this means that it will no longer appear in tasks and exam management. So if you see a lab that has a status of complete and you need to move it to another chart, what you do is you just open it here, click on this button. This will be at complete. You just change it back to review.
Okay.
Now, it should be appearing here. I'm not sure why the lab isn't appearing there, but it should be appearing there, but maybe it's just a refresh issue.
Yeah.
But basically what you do is you highlight any exam that's here, you can highlight and click on this button down here, move to patient.
Okay, so once you set it back to for review.
Once you set it back to review, it'll be back appearing in this list. Okay.
Again.
And you can move it to whatever patient you want. And once you're happy that that's moved, what you do is you go back into the patient where it was in incorrectly. So we're back in this patient, and you'll go in here and you'll see that one of these will be gone.
Okay.
Then what you do is you click on the patient's name here like this and go into the third tab over. And you see here patient lab mappings. You just highlight that and hit delete.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay. So that means the lab will need to be matched again correctly to the correct patient the next time it comes back in. It just stops it from going into the incorrect patient again the next time a lab comes down, you know?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a two-step process, really. Like, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There's two things. You have to move it and then remove the mapping to the patient. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Great. That's great. And then there was another one in here which I'm not sure if there is anything you can do, but it was from Dr. Pat Hill saying when reviewing HL7 messages and trying to get an item that's not on your screen now, for example, something over 30 days old, the scroll bar flicks right up and it can be difficult to get back to the original item. So I'm not sure if...
When you have a big list, when you're trying to scroll down, it flicks back up to the top, does it? Or
I think that's the issue, yeah. I'm not sure if there's anything about that, or if you know.
I need to fill it up with a few more here, I suppose, Donald.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
But what we can do is, we can, if Dr. Hill wants to give the desk a call or wants to organise a call with me, I can have a look on his live environment just to see what's going on there. It could be a screen resolution issue, it could be a couple of different things, but I'm sure we'll be able to sort it out in a live environment, you know.
Great. That sounds good. And then going back, if you've imported a lab into the system, but it's not showing in the patient chart, where might it be?
Yeah. So I just said I'd highlight this because I've seen this quite a few times. I'm not going to be able to show it to you in action because the labs I have are correct, but I have seen this in the past, and I just wanted to highlight it because we've got a few calls on it, and it can happen from time to time. So we'll pick this lab here, Donald, right, just for argument's sake. Okay, so what can happen is you get a lab and it gets downloaded to the patient's file. It came in correctly. You were able to view it in administration HL7 tests, no problem. But when you go into the patient's chart, you just can't see it anywhere. Now, so any exams that come back for review are ordered by the latest exam date, okay? So you would always expect your latest exams to appear very, very close to the top, and you don't see the exam there. And you're scrolling then, and it just doesn't catch your eye. Mm-hmm. The reason for this in most cases is if I go into the hospital view here, do you see this observation date here? Mm-hmm. See the way that date is the 14th of August? That date is the 1st of the 1st, 1901.
Okay.
Right? And what's happened there is now, this is, I think I spoke to, it happens in different labs. What I think it is when you're sending off the blood file, I think if the date that the lab is taken, if the date isn't on the label, or if the lab just for whatever reason don't see the date, they have to put in an arbitrary date.
I get you.
In the file that they send back down. So that's the date that they use, the 1st of the 1st, 1901. Right. So obviously, if you think of any normal patient that would be getting bloods on a regular basis, Donald, they'd have a page full of these, and right down the bottom of the page will be a lab that's for review with the latest exam, 1st of the 1st, 1901.
Right, okay.
So it's not that it's not there, it's just it's not where you're expecting it to be. Yeah. And basically what I would always do is, you can still view it, but I would always get it back in touch with HealthLink or get in touch with the lab and ask them to send it again with the correct date, just so that it's up where you can see it,
Exactly in the right place and where you're expecting.
Exactly.
Not 100 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great. And then just one more, unless anyone has any other questions, if you do, just click on the questions tab and send them in. But one more, if a lab has been migrated in, but it's not assigned to the correct doctor, why would that be?
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good one. The way the labs work is they will always, if I go into tasks and exam management again, I'll show you what I mean. So any labs, basically, my understanding is the lab find out who these labs are for based on, again, the label that's on the blood file, okay? So they will send the labs back assigned to a certain doctor. This doctor's name will be written in the XML file that they send back, okay? What HPM does is it will display any lab requested by any doctor. It will also display the lab for the doctor's registered healthcare provider. So say if I was a locum and I wasn't in the surgery that long and I've requested a lab, the lab will come back assigned to the locum user, but it will also be viewable. There could be a doctor here, that's the patient's registered healthcare provider, and it will be viewable by them as well. Now, what can happen is if the locum or if any doctor who requested a lab does not have a medical council number, it doesn't know where to show them. So what it does is if I didn't have a medical council number, none of these labs would display, because when the lab comes back, it's looking for a user name, a doctor name, and then it's looking for whatever medical council number they had. And if they don't have it in administration and users, the labs won't display here. Okay. And the other thing that can happen is as well, and again, we've seen this on a couple of sites, is that two users will have the same medical council number. There could be two user entries for one doctor. Okay. In the administration and user section. So it's just something to be aware of, that there might be two users with one medical council number, or the doctor doesn't have the medical council number populated at all.
Right. Okay.
And that would be why it wouldn't be shown. That would be one of the reasons why it wouldn't be shown as assigned to them.
Okay. Okay, that's great.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, look, Ronan, we've no more questions coming through, so I think again, just being conscious of everybody's time, and it's lunchtime.
Sure.
And we're all hungry, so look, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks again to everyone who joined. Thanks, Ronan, for a great demonstration. As I said,
no problem.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, as I said, this will be up on YouTube by the end of today. If anyone wants to look back on anything, we'll be going doing another webinar next Friday and the Friday after. So hopefully you can join us then. And again, if you have any questions, just reply to me. You should all have my emails from the my email from the registration. Send me on your questions, or if there's anything that you would like us to cover in particular for the next couple of weeks, send them on again and we can take a look. If you're having any issues with any of the above, just again contact the support guys and they'll be happy to help you out. So thanks again, everyone, and particular thanks to Ronan. And I hope everyone has a great weekend.
All right, thanks.
Thanks. Bye bye.